Right. Hello and welcome to another episode of Jay's Big Chat with me, your host, Jermaine, aka Jay. And joining me to talk about the big topic that is depression, we've got some wonderful people. We've got Rochelle, we've got Pipa, D'Angelo, and Juliet. Welcome, guys.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for joining me. So we're literally about to talk about one of the biggest topics I believe that there is. I'm excited. I believe that you're excited also, and those who will be watching this will either be watching because they too have suffered from some form of depression, or have had friends or family who've been affected by this. So either way, it'll be an interesting conversation to have. So how about we literally just kickstart and head straight in there? So like when we hear the word depression, like what comes to mind? Like what does depression mean to you guys?
I think for me, it would be kind of lack of purpose or lack of motivation to do anything really, even like the basic stuff. I think that's for me kind of depression, and it's so kind of consuming. I feel that it feels like everyone is kind of living their life and just going forwards, and you're just stuck.
Yeah, and I think also I would say it doesn't have to manifest itself in like tears and like I think people, when they think of maybe how it is portrayed in soaps, possibly. I know, like I'm going to say, D'Angelo, in England we have EastEnders, and there's characters in EastEnders, and they've got depression and they're like on a park bench, they're crying, and actually it doesn't have to manifest itself like that. It can be like what Juliet said about that kind of inability to kind of function or feel like you've got purpose or drive, or even just cancelling social events at the last minute, really those kind of symptoms that might be kind of like underlying, that doesn't have to, you could have a smile on your face the whole time and actually be suffering inside.
Just like based on what on just before we get to you, D'Angelo, based on what you both just said just now, like what is it that's sort of created that illusion, that in order for someone to be depressed, that you've got to, as you said, like on a park bench, like crying and things like that. Is it media? Is it just our own minds? Like
I think media, and also a bit of what D'Angelo said when we were kind of doing our intros about that fact that you don't talk about it, and like how and that perception that you don't have anything to be depressed about. You've got a great job, or you've got family, or you've got friends, but actually you shouldn't be depressed. And if you, I forgot the question now, I've got off topic, but I think it's a lot to do with people's perception, and it's kind of ingrained then either through your upbringing, possibly. I mean, depending cultural, obviously that has a massive impact, and maybe where you've been at school or at university or your social group.
Of course. D'Angelo, you were just about to say something before I interrupted, sorry.
Right. No, I was just going to kind of piggyback off of some of the things that's already been said, but just talk a little bit more about depression. One thing I think about is extreme sadness, and of course not having the interest in the activities that you may normally like to do. Say for example, you like to hang out with your friends, you like to go out, to the bar, you like to, I don't know, hang out with your girlfriends, hang out with whoever the case is. You find yourself not having interest to do those things that you may normally enjoy doing, or you just don't have the interest. When I think of depression, I think of a person. I mean, I've experienced this as well. So I'm even speaking from, my personal experiences, not wanting to get out of the bed, not wanting to even, carry on throughout the day, just wanting to sleep all day. Because just, again, piggybacking off of what Juliet said, just not having that motivation to do anything at all. So I mean, it can be just not having the motivation to go to work, not having the motivation to do the daily things that you're supposed to be doing on a day-to-day basis.
Do you know what? Just based on what you said, because obviously this is a personal, I guess, topic. Just for the viewers' sake, do you guys just want to take a minute just to kind of give the viewers a little bit on, I guess, maybe your background or why you have an interest in this topic, and then we can sort of move on, because I think it's, you know, as you said, D'Angelo, this is personal to you. So I think if we can kind of create that, you know, give them a picture of who you are, and then we can kind of move on. So we just do that, and then we'll continue.
I don't mind. I'll start off.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my name is D'Angelo Taylor. I'm a licensed professional counselor in the Washington, D.C. area here in the U.S. I'm also a coach and consultant and a music producer. I have a program called Soundtrack to Life, which uses music-based interventions as a way to break that barrier down for a lot of people who may not be, I guess, really into the traditional therapeutic approaches. So providing more of a culturally congruent approach to mental health.
Yeah.
Of course, I guess as far as a reason why I'm even within this field, because there are so many people, I guess, African Americans and Black males in particular, who don't necessarily talk about those problems and those issues that continue to get swept under the rug, but affect us every single day within our lives. So I think that's, of course, even myself having some of those experiences, wanted to, of course, give back and find a way that I can really connect and help those people like myself.
Very nice. Brilliant.
Cool. I'm Pippa. I'm a teacher, high school teacher in South London. I gave up drinking 8 months ago. So about 8 months next week. Woohoo! Yeah, and I was really interested in doing this chat because of the link that I have discovered between mental health, depression, and drinking, and finding out and discovering that about myself, that one really affects the other, and vice versa. I'm also, I work with teenagers, so I'm, closely monitoring their mental health, their moods all day in my job. Personally, I've been through a lot of counselling and therapy since I was 16. I've been in and out of therapists, private and NHS. I see a counsellor every week at the moment, and she's wonderful. And I think it's great. So yeah, that's me.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so I'm Rochelle. I'm from Birmingham. I'm an actor, and the reason why I'm interested in this field, this discussion, is just from having friends that kind of struggle to speak out and seek advice from professionals because they feel embarrassed or they feel like they shouldn't feel this way. Because of the pressures on them from family, things like that. And also, the kind of perspective from, the whole relationships and that kind of effects that depression can have from that. Also, again, from my friends' experiences. And also to just be here to obviously listen as well, and just be involved and have be supportive of the topic, and just to try and help people and just understand myself fully, your guys' opinions and views as well. So that's me.
Perfect.
And I'm Juliet, guys. So I am a qualified psychologist. I qualified last year. And the reason why I'm here is because I see, I think almost all the clients that I see, both in the NHS and private practice, depression or low mood actually is something that everyone struggles with. So I guess the message there is that actually it's quite common, and it's nothing to be embarrassed or scared about. That it's actually something, part of our life experiences, that if anything we kind of learn from and grow from. And in terms of me, my experience of depression is that at a very young age, kind of my mid-teens, I had lost one of my parents. And so that was kind of the start of my journey in terms of seeing a therapist. And to be honest, I still see a therapist now. And again, the thing there is that you don't have to see a therapist because you've got a mental health problem. No. You could see a therapist as a way of kind of reflecting on yourself and further developing yourself as a person.
Of course.
So yeah, that's why I'm here.
Of course. Guys, honestly, like, I think this is a perfect panel to talk about this, because, you know, we're going to be tackling this from sort of different point of views. And you know, what I'm really interested in is the fact that, especially here in the UK, I'm not sure about over there in the US, but there's been, I say, over the last couple of years, more so over the last sort of 1 to 2 years, there's been a highlight on mental health awareness. So I'll be riding on the tube and I'll be seeing, you know, sort of posters with helplines, and I'll be seeing adverts and things like that. So it's definitely, you know, we like to think that we've come a long way as a civilization. I just wanted to, you know, kind of know from you guys, when it comes to depression, or even just the word like depressed, how frequently used is that word, you know, and can it be sort of misconstrued for something else other than being depressed? So, you know, I for one have used it in you know, many situations where I can't be bothered to do something, or I'm feeling a bit sad or whatever it is, and just like, oh, I feel depressed today, or even actually I'll say, oh, the weather's looking depressing today, or, you know. So, you know, what's your view on sort of just the word? And
I think for me, in terms of my kind of clinical experience working with people who are depressed, what I've learned is that actually the meaning that I attach to the word depressed can be totally different to the meaning that the other person attaches to the word depressed. So what I've found helpful is that when someone does use that word, or if they are clinically diagnosed with depression, what I tend to kind of start off with to kind of better know the person is what depression means to them, and why is it a clinical thing. It's kind of a bit of a spectrum, actually, so it can go from being a feeling to something that you're diagnosed with, like a mental health diagnosis. So one of the ways that I kind of try and kind of bond or get to know the other person is kind of how what depression means to them and how they describe their depression, because it's kind of, as much as I say that, you know, low mood or depression is something that everyone or most people are commonly diagnosed with the clients that I work, I think different people have different experiences, and that's what makes it unique. And I think that is the thing that we kind of is helpful for us to understand or even ask about from someone who's depressed, because then that way they feel heard and understood.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I suppose in your role as well, it's like making that person feel that their feelings are valid. And, you know, even because I do that with the kids, you know, yes, they might use the terminology, I feel so depressed because my nail broke. But then actually, you know, it's about, you know, trying to make sure that whatever they are actually crying out for, it might actually be for attention, because I think actually that might, you know, depression might manifest in that way, and that's through just like a cry for help.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting, isn't it? You say like a cry for help, and I kind of see, you know, I've had friends, I've had family who both I have a self-diagnosed as having depression, or have actually been like professionally diagnosed as well. And it's the understanding of the depression, as you mentioned, Juliet. It's like, you know, what does your depression look like? What does it feel like? And then it's sort of understanding that. D'Angelo, you mentioned about the whole, you know, sort of African American and Black men, and I guess men in general, not wanting to, one, discuss feelings, and of course, you know, depression falls under that. So, you know, what's your experience sort of with that?
So I guess my experience is, not too many people will say that they are depressed. You might not hear it come out like that. You might not hear someone say that they're sad. You might actually just see some of the symptoms. You have to distinguish between the symptoms on really what this person is going through. So for example, someone may be, you know, be angry. And all you see is the anger, as one of the symptoms are. All you may see is how they behave is just like, okay, that's not corresponding to some of the things you're saying.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
based off those observation and based off actually digging and asking about some of the history and their actual experiences, then you're able to really pinpoint, okay, that's depression that you're going through right there. That's oh, you okay, this is what you're doing. You're really feeling down about yourself, sad, not doing things you're enjoying. You're not able to carry out, some of those normal activities. I guess 2 to 3 days out of your week, you feel like you just out of it. Okay, I see what this is. So it really comes down to actually having to dig deep and ask all the right questions for a person to talk about how they're really feeling, which can be a struggle for some people to actually talk about what's going on and open up and be vulnerable. And I think that's where, as a therapist, as a clinician, that's where rapport building comes in at, and that's where, okay, we got to get you guys to open up. Let me, of course, help you, make you feel okay and make you feel comfortable to actually talk about what's going on with you.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and coming from sort of the other angle, like Rochelle said, where you've got your friends who would open up and say certain things. Like how do you take that as a, because sometimes like someone hits you with something, you're like, oh my gosh, like I've never been in that position, like what advice can I give, like what is that you say, like how do you handle that one?
Yeah, I guess it is kind of crazy when you think, you have someone that you're close to, talk to you about feelings that they're feeling quite deep. In a way, I kind of see it as a positive because, they're talking to someone.
Of course.
They're getting it off their chest. Yes, I know I'm not a professional. I know that I'm not, well educated in that field, and I can't completely cure them of, the feelings that they're feeling. But it's a positive that, they're just able to talk and just feel safe and comfortable, talking about things, just getting it off their chest. And that's what I appreciate, say if, some of my friends do talk about deep feelings. And sometimes I can be affected by that, not in, like a horrible or negative way, but it kind of makes me emotional because I think, I wish that they could feel comfortable with talking to a complete stranger, because they would then be able to probably, guide them in the way that would be able to help them a lot more than I could. But yeah, like I do see it as a positive because they're able to talk, and I think that's one of the main things, is just being able to talk and feel comfortable. Whatever you're talking about, whatever makes you feel just somewhat better than what you already felt. And with my friends, I'd always try and do things with them, or try and not let their mind like get in their heads, and do you know what I mean, like just their thoughts eat away at them. But I have also experienced, like friends that do kind of cancel last minute, and you do think, oh, okay, like are they genuinely cancelling because something's come up, or are they cancelling because they're feeling these emotions that are linked to depression or even anxiety as well. I think I experience spells of anxiety, just like probably a lot of people do, and I just find it helps just being with people and talking to people, because like I said, I just think that's so important, to just feel comfortable and just want to at least get something off your chest that will make you feel somewhat better. And I think it's really sorry.
No. So I was just going to say, Rosh, like, don't underestimate what you are providing for that friend, because you're not a professional and you're not that stranger, but I think it takes a lot for someone to be able to feel what the other person is going through, and that empathy, it's something else. It's not something you can describe, or it's not something you can fake. It's genuine stuff, and I think it's amazing that you can be there for your friends in that sense. So yeah, don't underestimate yourself for that.
And I do believe sometimes it's harder to talk to people that really know you.
Of course.
Of course.
Like, that's why counselling works with a stranger. Like, I could have my mum ask me 1,000 times, what's wrong, and I don't have either the words or I don't really know. And it isn't until you see someone that's a professional and someone that's outside the family, possibly, who can then like articulate it for you in a way that you hadn't even thought about it yourself, or like your family hadn't even thought about it. I totally, if your friends feel comfortable, then they must really love you.
It's nice to, you know, like I said, I do feel it as a positive, and I'm like, I kind of feel, I don't know what the right word is, thankful maybe, or just, you know, lucky to have them to feel comfortable to talk to me.
It is, because like, I think a lot of the times, unfortunately, some people have not, like, they literally have no one to talk to, or they don't feel like they have anyone to talk to, or the right type of people to talk to. So I think the fact that someone can find sort of comfort in talking to you is amazing. I feel like we've come from a place of, I'm talking about probably worldwide, we come from a place where you get asked the question, how are you? And without even thinking about it, you're just like, yeah, I'm fine, I'm okay. You know, like 99% times, like, yeah, to some individuals you may say, well, actually I'm a little bit or whatever, but most times out of, you know, out of 10, you'll be like, yeah, I'm okay, I'm all right, you know, without even thinking about it. And I feel like that level, that if you kind of repeat that so many times, people are accustomed to you being okay. That the last thing you want to then do one day is just being like, oh, I don't want to be Jermaine who's not okay, like, so I have to be okay. Do you know what I mean? Because people know me as being okay. And then hence the reason why you don't get people sort of opening up, because it's like, actually, no, this group of friends, they know me as like fun or whatever it is, so I've always got to be okay there. My family knows me as being strong, so I've always got to be strong, otherwise, you know, who's going to be strong if I'm not going to be the strong one? So it's nice. It's nice to.
I completely agree. I completely agree. Like, I think, you know, just like anybody, it's kind of who you feel that you want to talk to at the time, I guess. Like there's been times where, you know, I've had a bit of a bad day, or I've not been feeling great, and, you know, I want to tell my friends that, or I want to tell my parents that, my family. It just kind of, I agree with what you're saying in terms of, if someone says, how are you? You're just like, oh yeah, I'm fine. It's because you can't almost be bothered to explain to that person, and it's just, it's about how people perceive you. But then I also think that, you know, you should be able to speak to people that you are close with, that you do feel comfortable with, and just, you know, explain. And
but also, is that not part of the issue when it comes to depression, where you kind of don't want to speak to anyone? Sometimes you want sometimes you want to, but because you're so depressed, like you don't even want to see anyone, you don't want to speak to anyone, you don't want to, sometimes you feel like you're burdening, or you don't understand your own feelings, so how could you explain it?
That's definitely
I think sorry, D'Angelo, just not understanding your own feelings is really, I that resonates with me, because I wouldn't understand, like when I was a teenager, I'd have loads of people noticing behaviors, and what D'Angelo said about aggression and anger, that was me, you know, like breaking things when I was a teenager, you know, and also drinking and self-harm. And I was like, I'm not depressed, like this isn't depression, like these kind of behaviors are not depression. And then being forced, then dragged kicking and screaming to see an NHS counsellor, and then actually her being able to unpick things, you then are able to recognize your feelings. And I think that is part of the journey, if you call it like that, from, you know, as Juliet said about the kind of continuum, it's like on a scale, isn't it, sliding scale, whereby you might have these things, you know, sort of behavioral, but you don't actually think it's feelings. And until you actually have someone else tell you, do you know what, potentially this is depression, you actually go, oh yeah, that is how I'm feeling, and you can unpick it. And I think, like I've already said, I see a counsellor, and you know, she's so good at being able to unpick things. And you know, she doesn't, I don't want anyone to go away thinking she puts words in my mouth, because she absolutely doesn't. But what she does do is articulate it in a way that I can't do myself. And that's what, you know, you two both do as professionals. You're able to do that. And that's really an amazing skill. And I don't think everyone can do that.
No,
you know, I don't think everyone can. And it is, again, as D'Angelo said about the rapport, the relationship is really important. And I've seen counsellors where I knew after one session she wasn't for me, and I wasn't afraid to say I didn't like you, and I didn't go back, you know. But it's about relationship, 100%.
Yeah.
Tell us, D'Angelo.
So yeah, I was just going to just go back as it relates to, you know, people not really wanting to talk about what's going on. That somewhat leads to that isolation, which is another symptom of the depression.
Yeah.
So that could be shutting other people out, because you feel like no one really wants to hear your problem. You don't want to be a burden. So that, again, that's you locking yourself within inside. Could be even locking yourself in a room, or just, I'm going to just keep my problems to myself. I don't want to cause problems for anyone else. I'm going to try to figure it out on my own, or whatever it is, I'm just going to deal with it. But definitely that isolation, that's another symptom of the depression. That is very unhealthy, because of course, that leads to the wandering mind, the idle mind, of course, or that leads to other things, and that which other negative things that can manifest from that isolation.
But how do you get out of this isolation? Like, if I'm depressed, how do I, you know, how does one get out of this isolation?
I think for me, there's two things there, and just so that I kind of add to what Pippa and D'Angelo have said, is that sometimes also it can be the case that despite us knowing that we're not behaving in the acceptable way, we still wouldn't want to accept that that's depression because of the stigma that it carries, because of whatever it means in whatever culture. I mean, I know for what I've kind of had from kind of I was born in the UK, but from my kind of cultural background, if you had a mental health problem, if you had depression, you're ostracized, you're put aside, you're not normal, you're not one of us, you know. That's the kind of mentality that some cultures can have. And when that's the case, even if you are feeling depressed, it's very difficult to even accept that, because you don't want to be one of them. It's that kind of in-group, out-group thing. But Jay, kind of picking up from what you had asked about how to deal with it, two things kind of came to my mind. One is that even though someone is isolating, I think we can tell if someone is kind of closing themselves off or isolating themselves. And in that instance, I mean, it's not going to hurt for, you know, us to kind of be like, are you okay? You know, you want to chat, just checking up on them kind of. I think that's something that, you know, as a community, we can all do. We're social beings. That's just part of us, you know. That was one thing that kind of came to my mind. And then the other thing, I think it was, I want to say it's a campaign, but I don't remember where it's coming from. But kind of a year back, I think, there was this thing about when you ask someone, how are you? And they say, I'm okay. The thing is that you ask twice. So normally we're like, hey, you know, how are you? And you're like, yeah, I'm okay. But then if you're asking that same question twice, it's kind of a kind of more of a space to explore, or a second call kind of, is that it? Is it okay? What does that mean? You know, so that's another thing that I've kind of found helpful as well with clients. Kind of, you know, I see them every week and I'll be like, you know, how are you? And they'll be like, oh, I'm okay. And then because I only see them once a week, I'm like, okay, so what does okay mean? Or how's your week been? And that's when you kind of go into the details, and that's a way of connecting, I would say. You're not really kind of helping them or intervening in a professional way, but you're just going in that bit deeper, just so that you can to see if you can connect with them if they are isolated.
Yeah. I mean, like, depression is, like, we're obviously talking about it now, but it's an actual, like, is it under the umbrella of an illness, right?
Well, see, it depends.
Is it clinical depression is an illness? I mean, I'm not the doctor, so but, yeah.
So there is, from my understanding, guys, considering we all understand things differently, clinical depression is a diagnosis. But in terms of how I understand a diagnosis or a symptom, is that's kind of, something's happened, they've experienced something, and that's how they're responding to it. That's how I see it. So that, for me, that means that people can respond in different ways depending on what's happened to them with life. Our experiences, our story is what makes us who we are. Yes, we've got diagnosis saying, you know, if you have this, this, and this for this time period, you have this. And okay, that can help us to get the right treatment or the right support. But kind of more deeper down, for me, it's more about, you know, what someone's story, what have they been through, what are they, what kind of, I guess, symptoms or effects are they having that they're not able to kind of come past those experiences. That's kind of what I tend to look at.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned sort of I guess treatment. So we've spoken about therapy. We've spoken about sort of checking in on individuals and, you know, being that good friend, being that person that you can be the outlet for an individual if, you know, they really need to get stuff off their chest and so forth. But there's also the medical side of things, isn't there? There's different forms of depression medication that can be prescribed to individuals. Now, I've heard different stories about you know, how these medications work, and I just want to kind of hear your views on, you know, whether your own personal experiences or friends or from a professional, you know, point of view, in terms of medication for depression.
I think different people have different experiences, so that's something to bear in mind. But kind of from where I'm coming from, and I'll be curious to kind of hear from you guys as well, D'Angelo, in terms of how you work with medication, but Pippa and Rosh too, in terms of, you know, friends taking medication. I think from the place that I'm coming from, where research says that if someone is taking medication and having therapy, that's like that's the ideal, that's the most effective way of treating someone with depression. But in that process, the reality, I guess, is that medication can take up to about a month or 6 weeks to kick in before you even see any effects. And also some people, it also depends on what people are using the medication for. Some people kind of want to kind of numb their emotions so that they can kind of just get on with stuff. Other people, they just want to, that they might be really kind of too energetic and they want to kind of calm themselves down. So I think it really depends on what the medication is addressing. But mainly from where I work, the medication helps usually the individual to kind of stay with me and talk things through and slow things down, to kind of process or understand what's happening and how they can manage.
I this might be controversial. I mean, I take medication. I take citalopram, and I have done since I was about 21. It took me almost 10 years. And I've posted about this on Instagram, and I've also got a friend and she's posted, and sometimes you get a lot of nasty trolls on Instagram. If you're going to be on you know, on the gram, as it were, then you're going to open yourself up to that. Lots of people, you know, lots of people say, oh God, your doctor must be like a psycho to put you on that for so long. But you know, I talk to my doctor every 6 months for a review, and she says every 6 months, is it still working for you? Yes. You know, and citalopram it's kind of like a mood balancer, right? Because I have a lot of this going on, ups and downs, and I know when I don't take it that I will be impulsive. You know, I will make bad decisions. I will feel low. You know, my lows will be lower and my highs will be higher. So I always stand by this. Taking medication to me is like a diabetic taking insulin. You know, you take insulin if you're a diabetic every day, and if I have to take citalopram, you know, for the rest of my life, then I will. But mental health is health, in my opinion.
So you've mentioned that you do that alongside seeing a therapist, right?
Yeah, and my therapist, in conjunction.
Which is exactly what Juliet was saying. So I think that works. But you were saying, DeAndre.
So that was a good analogy you made. It's like a diabetic will take their insulin. and just like you'll take your medications. As far as over here in the U.S., it's pretty much the same way. It's, you know, some people may just prefer talk therapy or just going into therapy, or some may just give me the medications, I'll be okay. But it's definitely much more helpful to take the medications concurrently while in therapy. That's of course so you can address some of those underlying issues and things that you may have not yet thought about to explore within your past or within your history. That will give you a better understanding for your depression, or give you a better understanding for why you're feeling the way you feel. So definitely, I want to say that for some, the medication helps you to even get to that point to even talk about what's going on. So I guess for some it works. For some people, they just talk therapy is all I need to get through this time right now, this moment. But I mean, at the same time, you know, it's all about the individual and what works best for them.
Sure. Because I had someone once say to me that it's almost like this is without therapy. You know, taking is obviously like that masking the underlying issue and not actually trying to resolve maybe or trying to resolve some of the feelings, or you know, I guess it's almost like having a headache every single day and just like popping a paracetamol or an ibuprofen without actually realizing, wait, why do I have a headache? And then like 10 years later you realize because you had a tumor growing all that time. So you know, can there obviously if you mentioned, yes, having been on medication for the last 10 years and speaking to your therapist, which I'm sure, as you mentioned, Juliet, is the perfect combination, because if at any point your therapist had to say, okay, listen, let's try and either there's another course of medication, or let's try and cut down medication, or whatever it is, they would know best, wouldn't they, as opposed to you just doing things on your own and going, okay, maybe I shouldn't, like maybe I should stop taking them now. Maybe it's been 10 years. Let me stop taking them now. Surely I'm all right.
Like the dose I take is very, very low. I take a very low dose, but I also would like to add that I've upped it at periods where things have been more difficult. Like I've had 2 bereavements and I've had my parents' divorce like in the last sort of 10 years, you know, and during those times I've upped it. And then she's brought it back down again. So it's just about having a really open and honest discussion with your GP. And that's, you know, that's what they're there for, isn't it? You know, you can't go into these things blind. That's why we don't self-medicate with these kind of drugs. We talk to a professional.
Yeah. So like in terms of I guess being depressed, right? I'd like to think that we're all at some stage in our lives, you know, have gone through some sort of depression. It may even be the case where we don't even know we're depressed when we're depressed. We're just thinking, oh, maybe I'm just having a bad day, or I'm just having a bad week, or I've had a bad year, or whatever it is. Or when certain things happen, you know, we then feel this depression without realizing that these are triggers, you know, whether it be you know, stress at work or bereavements, whatever the situation is. So, you know, I would like to think, and I'll say that based on my own sort of experience, where again, you know, sort of growing up in East London, you know, growing up with a family who would definitely, I guess it's hard to talk depression because of the era in which they grew up. Has been very much sort of, especially men, you sort of keep your feelings to yourself because, you know, you are the man of the house. You're a man, like men are strong, men don't cry, men don't show emotions, otherwise just get the job done, you know. And based on that, you kind of grow up with that mentality, and then you realize, okay, you're starting to feel certain things, you're starting to act a certain way, but then can you really go and talk to individuals about it? Because this isn't, you know, this whatever I'm feeling or however I'm acting isn't normal, and I can't go and tell what's not normal to individuals. So you know, there has been times where I've sort of dealt with things internally, you know, when I've gone through like really low points in my life where whether it be work or family or just my own stresses, that would cause me to be down and depressed. But then it's actually, as you mentioned, D'Angelo, it's actually getting to this point now where you realize, wait a minute, I'm not stupid. Like, why am I going to be suffering in silence? Like, what's the point? Like, who wants to do that? So what if I want to cry? So what if I want to, if I want to act? Do you know what I mean? Like, so what if I need to voice my opinion or speak to someone or proudly say, yes, you know, I've got a therapist. Like, what's the big deal? Like, I've got an issue and there's someone that can help me with it. Why not? So I think it's important to have these conversations from different sort of ages, different sort of backgrounds, for people to understand that actually there's nothing, you know, you can try as hard as you may at times, but without a little bit of conversation or a little bit of help, you can't go nowhere, really, can you?
Just,
I think.
Sorry, Rosh, do you want to go?
There you go.
Sorry, so just kind of picking up, Jay, from what you said, but also D'Angelo as well, about mental health and men. I think something that we really need to kind of be aware about is that actually there's research showing that 75% of suicide is men, and the kind of specific age group is between 30 and 45. And as it's just so important that we address kind of what is getting in the way for men to kind of, and it might be stigma, it might be the kind of upbringing about, you know, boys don't cry, you know, men aren't weak, and it's definitely, like you say, a discussion that we kind of have to be open and have, because it's just sad, really. I think there's, you know, that it's, I don't know, there's just, especially recently with, for example, within our kind of my community, with COVID, we've had, you know, we've had two brothers who had committed suicide 45 days apart from each other. You know, they had their own separate families, and yet within one family, two brothers have done this. And we've had a couple of families where, you know, parents have had mental health difficulties, and this has resulted in children being killed. And and this is the thing, mental health is real. It's not, because we may not always see the symptoms, and it's not like physical health, that's not to say that, you know, it's something that's okay to be brushed under the carpet. Mental health, you know, should be seen as equal to physical health. It can kill. And I think, like you said, Jay, these conversations are just so important to have, even if it's not broad like this, even just, you know, sitting in the lounge, having, like, talking it out with family, and you know, being curious about it, you know. I think it's so important.
Yeah, I think a lot of things, like you've all said, is based on like stigma and people kind of fearing to also kind of admit, you know, and come to realization that, you know, they do have a mental health, you know, and that they don't want to admit that, and they don't want to almost feel like a failure in some, like, you know, it's not the case at all. Like you said, Juliet, that it's important to just speak and just, you know, really kind of try and remove all the kind of negative stigmas and, you know, stereotypes, if you like, about mental health, and just dealing with what you're going through instead of just hiding away. And I can understand that, you know, people can struggle with that, and that is what, unfortunately, you know, eats away at people, and then it can result in suicide or self-harm, you know, several things that can spiral. And that's why I think that, you know, just, yeah, even having things like this, discussions, and hoping that people are just watching and just, you know, realizing that we're all from different backgrounds, you know, we've all have different experiences. Some can relate to mine, Juliet's, Pippa's, you know, and I just find it really important that people do try and remove the kind of negative stigmas and, you know, just be open. And I know it's a lot harder. It's easier said than done. But yeah, just really trying to remove the negative.
Yeah, And I feel quite a lot of social responsibility as a teacher with that kind of message. And when I started at my new school I've been a teacher for 7 years, I started at a new place in Croydon in September, and they weren't doing anything about mental health in the curriculum at all. And I said, right, first week I was there, I went in ballsy. I said, I want to do an assembly on this. And I did. And I remember so many of the staff coming up to me saying, you've got confidence to do an assembly on mental health. I said, no, I haven't. This is what we should be talking about. Like, you know, I said to the kids, like, you know, you wouldn't shy away from a broken arm, you know, for months on end. You would go to the doctors and have it looked at, you know, and your friends wouldn't laugh at you. You know, your mates wouldn't laugh at you if you had a cough, you know, a broken arm, broken leg. You know, it's the same thing. And, you know, depression is not dictated by your socioeconomic background, your family, your gender, your income. Like, it's not like Rosh said about, it's not a failure on you as an individual, because we don't say you failed if you broke your leg. Like, you know what I mean? And like, that's where I go with it with my kids, my students. And I'm not a parent, but you know, if I, you know, one day if I am a parent, I would be going with that approach as well, because it's so important that we start these conversations young, in my opinion.
Great.
That's a good approach.
I want to piggyback off what you said. It's everyone's responsibility to really have these discussions, talk about mental health and normalize it, just like we normalize going to the doctor if we have a broken arm, broken leg, or sickness like that. It's a conversation that needs to continue to happen in different environments and different places. Another thing is the seriousness of depression is that it can lead to suicide. And I mean, I think that's what, you know, it's a tough thing to talk about, but that's the reality of mental illnesses, that they can lead to a person really want to go to losing all hope to want to end life. And at that point, you can't help them no more at all. So I think that's another, you know, thing that's a reality of this whole topic of depression, is that it can really lead to a person harming themselves or suicide. Another thing is, being that we are in these quote unquote COVID times, or, you know, whatever, this is actually exacerbating depression for a lot of people, you know, not being able to get out. I know here there's so many, I mean, life is so different here. You know, you can't go out to the normal places you normally go to. You can't hang around a lot of your friends. So a lot of people are forced to isolate themselves. So they're forced to kind of deal with those problems on their own, on top of, you know, job security and things such as that. There's so many other factors, especially what's going on today in the world, that is really causing these spikes in depression to increase. So I think it's really important for us to continue to have a conversation and make it okay for people to want to talk about their problems and what they're going through, and actually seek out the help and talk to someone about what's really bothering them.
I mean, isn't it strange? Because like we've mentioned here, that you've got sort of your physical health, and then you've got your mental health, and it's just like mind blowing that, you know, it takes so long and so much effort to have the two as equal as it should be, you know, and you kind of just wonder to yourself, you know, at what point is it going to become as important, or to be honest, even more so? Because as you mentioned, Juliet, when you look at the statistics when it comes to sort of men and suicide, it's not a pleasant number, and it's not a number that just all of a sudden just shut up. It's probably stats that's been there for such a long time. But of course, now I feel like the generation that we're in, like, people are a lot more forthcoming when it comes to sort of speaking up and whatnot. So I hope that continues, and we continue to sort of, you know, be a nation that, or a world that continues to speak out on issues such as this. And when it comes to depression, the seriousness of it, I think unless you're kind of connected to it somehow, whether it's through a family member or friend or yourself, it kind of just goes over your head, just like a lot of things. But really and truly, this is literally a message to everyone, just literally saying, every single contact that's within your phone book, or on your Instagram or on your Facebook, wherever it is, you know, every now and again, a little hi or hey or what's happening, or a little checkup doesn't go amiss, because you never know what that message can do for an individual. And I'm pretty sure with you guys, your patients, and even with friends and your students as well, just asking them that second time how you doing, or let's meet up, or tell me what happened on the weekend. Just something like that can make or be the difference in someone's head, surely.
Another thing, Jay, I want to say is I think it's really important for people to develop those support systems, or those actually kind of know, okay, I know I can go to this person for support and to talk to. And I think that's important for people to have those people around them that they know they can go to. If they don't feel totally ready yet to actually go into therapy or talk to a therapist, they have, I mean, Rochelle, you mentioned how you're a person that's willing to listen and can really be empathetic. For a person to know that they have those people within their circle is really helpful and healthy for them. But not only that, I think, you know, also having some other positive outlets and tools that a person can use when they feel that they are down, or feel that they, you know, I don't have anyone right now immediately I can talk to. Maybe I can, you know, instead of holding all these feelings and emotions within, maybe I can go, let me write it in a journal. Let me just write it out. Let me get it out. Let me find other ways to positively express myself, so I'm not just shutting everything out and just holding all this within. So
DeAngelo, just based on what you're saying there, just as we kind of you know, bring this home, starting with you, we're talking about depression, we're talking about the signs of depression, we're talking about the actual effects that depression can have on individuals, on society. What are some, obviously you do, your music producer as well, and you said that you sort of combine therapy and music together. I just want to hear from all of you some ways in which, or advice that you can give to kind of, as it were, you know, have an outlet for you know, for your feelings and so forth. So yeah, tell us about how you deal with your I guess your patient.
Right. So some things that I usually recommend is helping people get out of that negative thought process or negative thinking by coming up with either positive affirmations or gratitude. So compiling a list of things that they really appreciate within life, things that they have within their life that's worth living for, and really also coming up and realizing, you know, what things matter most within their life as well. Those are just some things to try to bring people back to focus. Okay, there's some other, I have things to really live for. I have things that I can, you know, keep fighting for. But outside of that, you know, let me see, I discussed journaling, I discussed writing. As it relates to music, you know, there's many different aspects and parts of music that really helps a person, in a sense, practice mindfulness and meditation. Those are other tools that I also discuss. But as it relates to music, I know for me personally, that's something that allows me to stay focused within the here and now and focus on that process. So I know, even though I'm helping other people, that's a tool for me to actually stay present. So that's another thing, helping people really stay present within the moment versus dwelling on the past, or really focusing on things that hasn't even happened yet, or that fear of the future of uncertainty. So really trying to practice meditation and mindfulness are those things that I'll also recommend. Getting out, going for walks, going for jogs, working out. I mean, you know, even though, I mean, I want to say mental health and physical health are really directly related, because they kind of feed off each other in a sense. But these are just some tools that I would normally recommend to a lot of my clients, but also kind of find some things that they actually enjoy doing and encourage them to really do those activities.
Yeah, following on from that, like I really enjoy, you know, going for walks and just embracing, you know, the outdoors, whether that's by myself or with friends. Literally the other day, for example, I was feeling just a bit like, what am I doing? Like I was literally just sitting alone here, and I was like, oh my God, my mind's taking over. And I was just like, what's going on? I don't want to do this. And me and my friend literally went for a walk, and we was just walking and talking, and just, we both seemed to kind of got a lot of things off our chest just from doing that walk. And I felt so much better after it. And I'm sure she did too. And just really just, you know, trying to be productive and do like you said, doing things that you enjoy and things that you can keep your mind busy. And like for me, I'm very much focusing on my acting, sorting, you know, my profiles out, doing like show reels, and, you know, keeping myself busy. Also portraying things through that. So we do things like monologues, where, you know, we can either find a piece online to perform on camera, or we can actually write them ourselves.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you write them yourselves, you can really get in deep with your own emotions, and then you know, express that through performance, which I also find really helpful, and also fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, and also just kind of, I guess, trying to ignore the stigmas, and also people's ignorance towards mental health.
Yeah.
It might not be intentional, but, you know, I've been around friends or people that can just say a joke like, oh, you're not depressed, are you?
Yeah.
Or, you know, kind of really say things that, you know, bring that in a negative light, and it's not. And I know they're just passing comments in, but it's just their kind of ignorance. Sometimes it can be purposeful, and people are like, oh, you know, get your depressing vibes away from me, which can be very nasty and really, you know, close people off. Or it can just be, you know, not intentional, but they will still pass it as a joke. And, you
lack
know,
of education. That's once again, that's lack of education, isn't it?
Yeah. And yeah, it's just lack of education, you know, and sometimes it's not people's fault. It's just, you know, it's just how people are. But kind of just knowing those people, and, you know, just kind of trying to avoid them, not like obviously to really extremes, but just be cautious and not try and take what they say so much to heart, when you have other people around you that are supportive, educated to some, you know, to some extent, and will help be the best version of yourself, and, you know, really bring you out of your spiraling or negative thoughts. So yeah,
I mean, that's absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I agree with the exercise. I'm not like a massive gym bunny or anything like that. I just, but like the walking, especially during COVID, and then also schools were closed in March. So I haven't been like out of the house basically, like, you know, for months. And, you know, I know within myself, the days I don't walk, I am miserable, 100%. And my counsellor said that to me. She said, it's the first thing I recommend to my clients or to patients. I don't know if Juliet and D'Angelo, you say the same, but, you know, it's the first thing. She said, have you exercised today? No. Well, there we go, you know. So exercise for me, journaling as well. I mean, I started journaling when I got sober, so that for me, like, was about my sobriety, and also then about me just writing down how I feel. I put a lot of personal stuff on my Instagram as well. When I say personal, I mean a lot of it's kind of organic. It's my thoughts. A lot of it, what I write down, is a kind of way for it. It's about keeping myself accountable with my drinking, and also then it sort of became a really. I discovered I quite like writing, and I didn't really know that I like writing. So now I do that a lot, and the gratitude as well.
Just a question on that: do you actually read over like stuff that you write in your journal or on your posts and stuff? Do you reread?
I do. I have read back my posts on Instagram from when I first got sober, like back in December, and I have seen the trends change. You know, some you can see when I was in good moods versus when I was in, you know, not so good moods, because you know. And like giving up drinking has not been an easy ride. Like, I loved it. You know, at the beginning, they describe it as the pink cloud at the beginning, where it's really lovely. You see all the benefits, you're sleeping better, your skin's better, all of those things. And then that kind of wears off a bit. And then you're sort of stuck then with the reality that I've kind of made this decision for life. And now I have to live with it. Which I'm 100% convicted. You know, I've got conviction in my decision. But, you know, there are weeks where I'm like, I don't know if I can curse on here, but I'm like, shit, that was hard. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and that makes me miserable. And I have to, if I write that down, it helps. That's therapy in itself. Writing down, Pippa, you've had a shit day because you couldn't have a drink, but you know that if you did, you'd feel worse. So, you know, I know.
I also really respect the fact that, you know, the first thing you said when you come in here is, oh, I do like these mocktails. And I literally, do you know what I mean? Like, I literally just think like, wow, you're so positive.
Oh.
You know, like mocktails. Do you know what I mean? You know, you've been really open about your story, and you know, you're being sober for how long, and just even doing things like that, I just find so inspiring. And honestly, like with your little backdrop doing the mocktails, for it, like it's so good.
But it is like this part, being invited to do this as well is therapy for me, because I'm talking to 4 people I've never met before, and like you're all lovely, and you know, it's really good to like get stuff off your chest.
Pipa, do you want to very quickly just tell us because you mentioned before the correlation between sort of alcohol and your depression. Do you just want to like just quickly just run through that as a sort of a last point?
Yeah, like you know, like stress was a big factor in me drinking, and being a teacher is really stressful, and so I drink more, and some weeks I'd go pretty much, you know, wine and no food, and you know, that's you know, terrible combination for your health, and you know, physical health and your mental health, and it just sent me into a complete spiral of depression in varying degrees of severity throughout the years. You know, some years, months, days worse than others. And sort of by December last year, I kind of had hit a rock bottom physically and mentally. I was just in the worst possible place. And you know, it was something that people had said to me for years, you know, Pippa, if you stop drinking, you'll feel better. And I was like, no chance, like they're not related. And you know, I did it, and you know, you can't drag someone to make that decision. You have to make that decision for yourself. And so I did, and you know, I could feel the benefits within a month. I felt better, you know, like within myself, you know, my confidence is better, you know, all the things I thought alcohol was giving me, I have achieved through not drinking.
That's absolutely powerful stuff.
Amazing.
Honestly,
and it's like the sober community on Instagram is fabulous. I know, Jermaine, you had like a sober chat the other week. And like the guys you had on are like so inspiring, and there's like, I can't believe there's so much support on Instagram. So
I mean, I think just as this chat would kind of show, there's actually so many people out there on like, you know, good paths. So like, for instance, with the sober community, I didn't realize until I actually went looking, and then after looking, I realized that not even looking anymore, it was just there, but I just couldn't see. And I just realized, oh my gosh, it's a massive community. And same, you know, every topic that I go to sort of look at, I think, oh, it's not really spoken about enough or whatever, but there's actually a massive community. You know, even with the depression, there's massive forums and communities that are set up, and groups that are set up on different social platforms. But of course, there are still hundreds of thousands, millions who, you know, who aren't aware. So I guess the more we talk, you know, my connections, your connections, then, you know, this is like what, there's 5 of us here. We all have connections, and our connections have connections. Before you know it, it just spreads. So yeah, I think were you about to say something as well, Juliet, or?
No, I think everyone's kind of said most of it, actually. I think the 2 things that really help me, and something that I have kind of shared with clients, friends, whoever, is that I kind of help people a lot of the time with what we do, and with depression, it can be quite deep in the sense that we kind of truly believe that something is wrong with us, or we're not good enough, or there's something bad about us. And when it comes to a belief like that we may be holding on to for years and years and years, what's important here is that there's 2 things that I say that actually it's not our fault a lot of the time. For example, what I mean by that is, you know, some of us are blessed with, you know, good family and friends, but in other times, you know, we don't get to choose the family we're born into. We don't get to choose the circumstances we're born into. We can't choose how parents or people around us are kind of, you know, treating us, or how, let's say, if they have their mental health and they have their own demons, that's not really necessarily a choice in that, you know, we're born into that, and so it's really important that once we do get the awareness that, you know, we are, you know, who we are, and we get to choose what we want to do. I think that's really important, that choice is really important. I mean, you know, even I've made unwise choices at some point in my life. We all do it, but the main thing is that a lot of the time it is our circumstances that we're trying to manage. And the second thing is we're doing our best. Like even Pippa, for example, when you share that, you know, you've the alcohol and how the journey that you've had with that, even that alcohol, you're doing your best. You know, that's may have been, that's how you've, you know, learned to manage, or you've seen others manage, whatever, it could be anything really. But what I want people to realize and understand is that in any situation or in any circumstances, we are doing the best we can, and there are better ways of doing things and there are worse ways of doing things. But to kind of have, you know, to kind of cut that slack, I guess is what I'm saying, and just acknowledge that you are doing the best you can, and that's that, and kind of avoid any judgment or kind of critical thoughts with that. I think that can kind of take people a long way. So again, people who are feeling really depressed, you're doing the best you can, and this is not permanent, you know, we're always changing. That's us, that's humans, we change.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely amazing. And to be honest, I think we've gone over so much to do this. It is such a wide topic, isn't it? And you can't, I know for a fact that you guys have so much more stories and experiences and things you want to say. And by all means, if we have to have another conversation based on more sort of specific areas, then I'm sure we can go ahead and do that. In saying that, we have definitely dived straight to the bottom, and have explored a lot to do with this topic called depression. I just want to say a massive thank you for sharing your opinions and your thoughts and your stories. And you know, it is a personal thing to do, isn't it? Like a topic like this to talk about, even if you're talking about another person. And honestly, massive thank you for sharing that. And I was actually, I did look like halfway through our conversation, my phone was sort of just like vibrating, and like just so many people just saying, oh my gosh, yes, to what this person was saying. Oh my god, yeah. So like I am getting amazing feedback already. So I know, you know, even if it's one or two individuals, again, it's one or two individuals who has, I guess, some advice that they can take. And I think someone can take something away from this. So once again, guys, amazing chat.
And thank you for you, Jay, as well, for, you know, bringing us together, all walks of life, and to give us this opportunity to kind of share and discuss. And honestly, you're doing something amazing as well, where you're starting off important conversations like this. So yeah, it's amazing, and thank you for having us.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Jay.
Much appreciated, man. This is great what you're doing here.
Teamwork. And again, if this was a year ago, unfortunately, D'Angelo, I wouldn't have had you here because you're in the US, and we were doing it in an office space where everyone was physical. But of course, you know, they say every disappointment is a blessing, every silver lining, and so forth. So COVID, as bad and serious as it is, it has definitely led me to doing these chats online, where, you know, individuals like yourself, even you, Rochelle, sort of joining from Birmingham, can all get together. So it's been just in closing, can you guys just leave the viewers your kind of handles where they can find you, whether you've got you know, channels, websites, socials, and I'll also put in the description as well, but just for audio purposes, if you can just sort of say what you think.
Mine is at sober Pipa, or one word. Most of my content is like sober lifestyle stuff, but I do post about mental health, sort of trying to be an advocate for that mental health and the link with drinking, and I do a lot of mocktails with my background.
I love that.
Thank you, Pipa. Yep, next.
I'll go next. Or shall I? Should we fight? I'm on all social media handles, so mostly Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and I go by the name Dr. Juliet Anton. So if you guys have any questions or you guys need any support, I'm more than happy to help. Everything's confidential. So yeah, support is there, guys.
Perfect. Thank you, Julia.
You guys could find me at Taylor Famous Q on Instagram and and Twitter, and I think any other social media platform. Also, you can follow my page, Soundtrack to Life LLC, where I'm giving out a lot of mental health tips and advice and coaching as well. Right now, we're doing a 30-day mental wellness challenge. We actually started August 1st. So if that's something that you're interested in with making your mental health a priority, guys, tune in, check out the page, and follow along.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
My socials are just my personal socials. So my Instagram is RochieXO, and the same on Twitter. I also have my acting platform, which is Rochelle Cook _actor. But definitely after this chat, I feel like I want to kind of expand my social media and take advantage of my following, and having another platform, covering mental health and just trying to, support it the best I can.
Good.
So.
That's absolutely amazing. Honestly, that's fantastic. And as I said, I'll put your handles in the description below as well. But unfortunately, we have to go. We will. I'm pretty sure we'll be back again.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm sure we've got so much more to say. But for now, thank you very much again for joining me, guys. And until the next time, take care.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.